Have you ever wondered if it's possible to create a miniature, fully formed human being? Not in a sci-fi movie, but right here in a lab, using ancient knowledge. For centuries, this very idea has captivated the minds of alchemists, philosophers, and scientists. It's the concept of the homunculus, a Latin word meaning little man, and its story is one of the most bizarre and fascinating in the history of science and occultism. The earliest whispers of the homunculus can be traced back to the roots of alchemy. One of the first to lay out a recipe was the 16th century Swiss alchemist, Paracelsus. His instructions were, to put it mildly, strange. He claimed that if a man's seed was sealed in a hermetically sealed glass vessel and buried in warm horse manure for 40 days, it would begin to live and move. After this period, it would resemble a tiny, transparent human form. Paracelsus wrote that it should then be fed daily with the arcanum of human blood for 40 weeks, and kept at the temperature of a horse's womb. If all went according to plan, the result would be a living child, a homunculus, complete with all its limbs, though much smaller than a newborn infant. He believed these creatures possessed great intellect and could reveal hidden secrets to their creators. It sounds like something from a fantasy novel, but for Paracelsus and his contemporaries, this was considered a serious, albeit secret, scientific endeavor. The idea didn't stop with Paracelsus. It evolved and found its way into philosophical debates, particularly surrounding human reproduction. Before the discovery of the ovum, or egg cell, in the 19th century, a prevailing theory was preformationism. This theory suggested that all future generations were already preformed, existing in miniature inside either the sperm or the egg. Adherents of this theory, known as spermists, believed that each sperm cell contained a tiny, perfectly formed human, a homunculus. The woman's womb was seen as nothing more than an incubator, a place for this little person to grow. In 1694, a Dutch student named Nicolaas Hartzoeker produced a now famous drawing. It depicted a microscopic view of a sperm cell, and curled up inside its head was a tiny, complete human figure. Hartzoeker didn't claim to have actually seen this. It was more of a theoretical illustration of the preformationist idea, but the image was so powerful that it became the defining visual for the homunculus theory for centuries. It captured the imagination of scientists and the public alike. Imagine looking through a microscope and believing you were seeing a miniature, unborn person, just waiting for the right conditions to grow. This idea elegantly explained how complex human beings could develop from seemingly simple origins. It sidestepped the difficult question of how intricate structures like the brain and heart could form from scratch. According to preformationism, they were already there, just incredibly small. Of course, there were debates. The ovists argued the opposite, that the homunculus was located in the egg, and the sperm simply provided the trigger for its growth. This scientific rivalry raged for over a century. It wasn't just a dry academic argument. It had profound implications for understanding heredity, the roles of men and women in reproduction, and even our place in the divine order. If every generation was nested inside the previous one like Russian dolls, did that mean Adam or Eve contained all of humanity within them? These were the big questions of the day, all revolving around the concept of a little man. As science advanced, the preformationist theory and the idea of a literal homunculus began to crumble. The development of more powerful microscopes and the rise of cell theory and embryology in the 19th century showed that embryos develop progressively through a process of cell division and differentiation. There was no preformed miniature human to be found. The discovery of the mammalian egg cell by Carl Ernst von Baer in 1827 was the final nail in the coffin for preformationism. Science had moved on, and the homunculus was relegated from a scientific hypothesis to a historical curiosity. But the story doesn't end there. The homunculus refused to disappear completely. Instead, it transformed, finding a new life in literature, art, and philosophy. The most famous literary example is, without a doubt, in Goethe's masterpiece, Faust, Part 2. In the play, the homunculus is created in a laboratory by Faust's former assistant. It's a being of pure light and intellect, confined to a glass phial. Unlike the alchemical homunculi of old, Goethe's creation isn't a physical being but a spirit, a symbol of pure, disembodied intelligence striving for physical form. It represents the quest for knowledge and the tension between the spiritual and the material world. Goethe brilliantly took this old alchemical concept and gave it a new, profound philosophical meaning. From there, the homunculus has continued to pop up in modern culture. You can see its influence in stories about artificial life, from Frankenstein's monster to clones and androids in science fiction. The core idea, creating life through unnatural means, remains a powerful and sometimes unsettling theme. The homunculus also found a new, metaphorical home in the fields of psychology and neuroscience. In your brain, there's something called the cortical homunculus. It's not a literal little man, but a distorted visual representation of the human body. It is a map showing how much of your brain's cortex is dedicated to processing motor or sensory functions for different body parts. The hands, lips, and tongue, which are very sensitive and require fine motor control, appear enormous on this map, while the torso and legs are tiny. So, in a strange twist, a little man does live inside your head, but as a neurological map, not a physical being. So, from an alchemist's bizarre experiment in a flask of horse manure, to a heated scientific debate about the nature of life, to a philosophical symbol in great literature, and finally, to a model of our own brain's wiring, the journey of the homunculus is truly remarkable. It shows us how ideas can evolve, adapting to new knowledge and cultural contexts. It is a testament to our enduring fascination with the mystery of creation and the age-old question of what it truly means to be human. The next time you think about artificial intelligence or genetic engineering, remember the strange, wonderful, and persistent legend of the little man in the bottle. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the bizarre history of the homunculus fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the strange corners of history and science. See you next time.